He had lived through the toughest courtrooms in the country, facing criminals, liars, and the darkest parts of humanity, yet nothing prepared him for the moment. He stepped onto his own front porch and realized he wasn't safe in his own neighborhood. It started with whispers, then stares, then the kind of fake smiles that carried a quiet warning. You don't belong here. And when the neighbors finally crossed the line, calling the police on a lie that could have cost him his life, one truth became painfully clear. Justice means nothing when people judge your skin before your character. Before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe. Some more stories like this reach people who need to hear them. The Johnson family had always dreamed of a place to call home. A quiet neighborhood where their children could play safely and grow without fear. Marcus Johnson, a dedicated federal judge known for his fairness and integrity, had spent decades upholding the law, ensuring justice for countless people who had no voice. His wife, Angela, was a compassionate schoolteacher, and their two children, 10-year-old Maya and 7-year-old Jordan, were bright, curious, and full of life. When they found a charming house in Maplewood, a predominantly white suburban community, they thought they had finally found their sanctuary. Boxes were unpacked, rooms filled with laughter, and for a brief moment, it felt like a new beginning. But it didn't take long for the unease to creep in. Neighbors who once smiled politely now gave sidelong glances, whispered comments floated as they walked past, and small subtle slights began to pile up. Mailboxes were left open, lawns were scrutinized with suspicion, and casual greetings were met with cold silence. Marcus tried to brush it off, telling himself it was just the awkwardness of being new. But Angela felt the weight immediately. Her children were noticing, and so was he. The tension was a quiet storm, building under the surface, waiting for the day it would break. Every knock on the door, every glance from across the street, felt charged with judgment. What had seemed like a fresh start was slowly revealing itself as a battlefield of prejudice, testing not just their patience, but their dignity and sense of safety in a country Marcus had sworn to serve. At first, the harassment was small, almost invisible to outsiders. A discarded trash bag on their lawn, a lawnmower left running too close to their driveway, whispers that cut through the neighborhood like ice. The Johnsons tried to ignore it, telling themselves that maybe some neighbors were just wary of newcomers. But the subtlety didn't last long. Soon, the looks became pointed, the comments louder. They don't belong here, one neighbor muttered, loud enough for Marcus to hear as he walked his children to school. Another left a note on their door with a warning. This is our neighborhood. Be careful where you step. Angela tried to shield Maya and Jordan from the growing tension, but the children noticed. Maya asked why the neighbors never smiled at her anymore, and Jordan wondered aloud why their neighbors stared every time they played outside. One evening, as Marcus returned from work, a group of neighbors congregated near the driveway. Their voices carried, sharp and accusatory. Someone had apparently complained about the Johnsons' family hosting a small gathering on their patio earlier that afternoon. A casual barbecue with a few friends. Nothing loud or disruptive. Marcus greeted them politely, trying to de-escalate, but the hostility only grew. Words escalated into shoves, though Marcus and his family never retaliated. Then came the phone calls. Someone had called the police, claiming Marcus had threatened the neighbors. The Johnsons were suddenly facing a different kind of threat, one that carried the weight of authority and the risk of violence. Within minutes, uniformed officers arrived. Their presence heavy, their expressions hard. Marcus stood on his porch, hands raised, trying to explain calmly, but every word seemed to fall on deaf ears. The neighbors recounted their story with dramatized fear, painting Marcus as the aggressor. Angela stepped in, her voice trembling, insisting nothing had happened, that they were being harassed. The officer's suspicion was palpable. Marcus, a man used to commanding courtrooms with calm authority, felt a familiar tension in his chest. The frustration of being judged not for his actions, but for the color of his skin. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Cameras flashed from neighbors' phones, recording the family as if they were criminals on display. Marcus tried again to speak, emphasizing his innocence, but every effort was met with skepticism. The Johnsons had done nothing wrong, Yet they were cornered, trapped by prejudice and assumption. And in that moment, Marcus knew this confrontation could end any number of ways. It was no longer just about a new home. It was about survival, dignity, and the fragile line between justice and injustice. The tension outside the Johnsons' home had reached a boiling point. Neighbors were shouting, pointing fingers, cameras raised, each one certain they had caught wrongdoing on tape. The police, responding to the complaints, stood firmly on the driveway, their hands hovering near their belts, eyes narrowed. Marcus kept his voice steady, explaining calmly that nothing had happened, that his family had simply been playing outside. But calm meant nothing here. The officers' gazes lingered on him with suspicion, their body language rigid, and every word he spoke seemed to be twisted in the air. "Step aside," one officer barked, clearly caught between protocol and the prejudice he didn't recognize in himself. Marcus knew the moment could spiral out of control at any second. He saw the fear in his children's eyes, the way Angela's hands shook as she tried to shield them. A simple afternoon in a new home had transformed into a scene of intimidation and humiliation, orchestrated entirely by Biastad, and then, in a single controlled motion, Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out his identification. "I am a federal judge," he said, his voice calm but commanding. The words cut through the chaos like a thunderclap. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. The neighbors froze mid-sentence, their smug expressions fading into shock and disbelief. The officers stepped back instinctively, reading the ID with stunned silence, their previous suspicion crumbling instantly. The weight of the moment was enormous. The same man they had treated as a potential threat was, in fact, a guardian of the law itself. The neighbors' lies, their escalation, their harassment, lay bare in an instant. The reality of prejudice, that even a man who enforces justice daily could be doubted and harassed, hit harder than anything before. It was a powerful, unforgettable lesson. Injustice does not discriminate by title or position. And in that moment, the Johnsons' home, once a place of fear, became a quiet testament to dignity, truth, and the courage to stand firm. In the wake of the revelation, the neighborhood fell into stunned silence. The same neighbors who had harassed, whispered, and called the police now avoided eye contact, their arrogance dissolved into shame. The officers, once tense and accusatory, offered quiet apologies, though the damage had already been done. For the Johnsons, the ordeal was a harsh reminder that even in a country governed by law, prejudice can strike anywhere, at any time. Marcus returned inside, holding his children close, while Angela unpacked the boxes of their disrupted afternoon, trying to restore a sense of normalcy. But the incident left a deeper mark. It revealed how assumptions, fear, and bias can escalate ordinary interactions into moments of injustice. It was a lesson not just for the neighborhood, but for society at large, that systemic and personal prejudice can affect anyone, even those who uphold the law. And while the Johnsons had emerged with dignity intact, countless others are not so fortunate. The story lingers as a reminder that justice is fragile when weighed against ignorance, and courage is required every day, not just in courtrooms, but in the very streets we call home. If you've experienced or witnessed injustice, share your story in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so together we can spread the message further.